I'm your host, Salvatore, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone who has supported this podcast so far. Now, today's episode is another special one as I'm joined by founder of the incredible charities Childline and the Silver Line, as well as journalist, writer and TV personality who has been in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here and various quiz shows like The Chase. And she was the host of the TV series That's Life for 21 years. It's Dame Esther Rantzen. Thank you for joining me today. First of all, Dame Esther.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's okay.
Go on.
First of all, Dame Esther, we've been in a few lockdowns over the past year. So how have you been doing?
Well, I locked myself down quite early. I came to the New Forest on March the 14th. I don't think Boris locked us down until the 23rd last year. So it's obviously got its pluses and minuses. The big minus is it's very difficult to meet people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are lots of important people in my life that I miss a lot. But it stopped me being quite so busy. And I think that was sensible because I don't know what I was busy doing. You know, you can get addicted to it. Yeah. And I think I was. I think I needed to have, 8 or 10 things in my diary every day. And I really don't know why. And in fact, my children thought I was balmy and told me so. So in some ways, it's made me reassess the priorities in my life, which I think is probably sensible.
Yes, very. And you are well known for being the presenter of the BBC TV series That's Life from 1973 to 1994, and it became staple viewing for the British people every Saturday and later Sunday night. For the students who don't know what it is, could you tell them how it started and what it was about?
Well, it was a consumer program. If you've ever seen Watchdog or Rip Off Britain, that's where it started. But as we got more and more phone calls and more letters from viewers, they began to ask for our help in different kinds of problems. For example, a mum wrote to us and said that her daughter, I think it was, quite young, was playing in a playground and just was standing on the bottom step of the slide. She was quite little and she fell and she hurt herself very badly. Mm. And she said, why is it that children's playgrounds have got concrete or tarmac as surfaces? So we started to look into it and found that nobody had collected the figures of children who were badly hurt falling from equipment in playgrounds. So then we looked at what was happening around the world, and we found in Germany, for example, they had rubberized surfaces which children could bounce and not hurt themselves. So I started to demonstrate in the studio with a china plate, dropping it on the concrete where it smashed to smithereens, and then another one dropping it on the rubberized surface where it was completely undamaged. And you only have to offer the British public good information and they will take it aboard and use it. So all over the country, parents were going to local councils and to schools and to say, we can't have this. This is dangerous for our children. And once I demonstrated it on the program, insurance companies realized that if they didn't suggest to schools and local authorities that they put safe surfaces in playgrounds, people would sue the schools or the local councils and get lots of money. And insurance companies don't like losing a lot of money. Not that anybody likes losing a lot of money, but insurance companies particularly don't like it. And that is why, to this day, you will see playgrounds all over Britain, whether it's in schools or in parks, or have safe surfaces, sometimes the wood chips, sometimes the rubber surfaces. So we were able to change a lot. And that wasn't really consumerism. That was, we talked about transplants, we talked about child abuse, we talked about all kinds of subjects, and we had a studio audience, so we had lots of jokes as well. We had a dog that could talk. You'll find him on YouTube. I really recommend 3 German Shepherd dogs, Alsatians, and soda water siphon. Just put dogs and soda water siphon and you'll see a German version of our film. So we did lots of things. Perhaps the most famous piece of film you can find was on Facebook. And it was when we discovered that a lovely man called Nicholas Winton had saved lots and lots of Jewish children from the Holocaust. And without telling him in advance, we sat him next to two ladies he didn't realize had been two children on the trains that he created the sort of rescue mission with, and they didn't realize they were sitting next to the man that saved them. So that's a jolly good bit of television, though I say I shouldn't. So you see, it was a magazine program, we called it, because there were so many different items of different kinds, and there's nothing on television at the moment like it. So I can't compare it with anything that you've seen. Talented Pets, how to save babies' lives, everything. If it happened in real life, then we could put it in that's life.
Do you think something that's probably similar to it now, I know it's not exactly the same, but you've done a bit of work for them, is The One Show?
It's a bit like it, but they haven't got an audience.
No,
their jokes aren't quite funny. It's a very good program. It's edited by a friend of mine, but I think even he would say it's not quite the same. It gets about 4 or 5 million. We got about 20, 22 million.
Amazing. And would you think that it could ever come back? Would you be willing to make it come back?
Well, I think they'd need me. I say that because I'm very conceited, and also because I've seen people try and fail. And that's quite satisfying.
I bet. And from That's Life, you of course founded the charity Childline in 1986, and then later on in 2012, the Silver Line. So for those who don't know, could you explain what brilliant work they do?
Well, the Childline started as a phone line for children who needed help to ring up because they knew it was confidential and they could do that safely without anyone knowing. And for children who were suffering abuse or neglect, that was really important, that they felt safe asking for help. Nowadays, you can get in touch with Childline online. You can send emails, you can have online chat. We've got a message board. Have a look at the website and you'll see lots of ways that Childline is helping young people still. And that was so successful that when I realized that there were older people who were very lonely, weren't talking to anybody, etc., I thought maybe they could do with a phone line. So we've set up the Silver Line, which is free and confidential also. And a lot of people ring it. So in these days when it's so difficult to help people face to face because we're all being kept separate, aren't we, by the lockdown, it's when you've got a phone line, it's fine because it works perfectly well. The only thing is that we've lost quite a lot of our volunteers because they had to shield themselves or go into lockdown and they couldn't come and work with us. So that's a shame. But we're doing the best we can. We're trying very hard to meet the demand.
Yeah, it's been tough times, and I'm sure they've been doing some amazing hard work as well. And has joining forces with Age UK helped?
Oh, enormously, because it's very, very difficult to raise money for charity these days, particularly because the charity shops have shut and you can't run fundraising events anymore. But I think it's particularly difficult to raise money for charities with older people.
Yes.
I don't know how that is, but it just is a fact. If you have a look at the list of the most popular charities in England, you'll see that there aren't any charities working with older people in the top 10 or the top 20 or the top 30 or the top 40. Age UK comes in at number 46. So it made a huge difference to Silver Line. I don't think we could have survived at all if we hadn't merged with Age UK. So we're very grateful. Yeah.
And you and Childline also merged with the NSPCC. Has that helped as well?
Absolutely. And that's what enabled us to start our online services. And it's very important. I think it's okay to start a little charity if you think of a particular need and you know that those people need help. You can start a charity and see if you can provide that help. But after a while, these days, I think it's probably a good idea to merge with a bigger charity because it's so hard. Although you will have noticed that we've just lost a fantastic fundraiser called Captain Sir Tom
Yes,
Moore, and
exactly.
he had the magic touch. He managed to raise millions and millions of pounds for the NHS, people who work in the NHS. So it can still be done, but it's very hard. You don't get many Captain Toms.
No, you don't. He was an incredible man. Yeah.
Right.
And do you feel that Captain Sir Tom Moore has impacted older people in a positive way this lockdown? Have they been more in touch with the silver line?
I think he's given us all hope, whatever age we are. He had this wonderful saying, which was, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be a better day. And I think if we all believe that, it enables us to move forward. I certainly think he proved, as the Queen proves and David Attenborough proves, that in your 90s, you can still be incredibly valuable and do amazing work.
Yeah.
So I think that is a good thing.
Exactly, yeah. And in regard to Childline, what more do you think schools can do with domestic abuse cases?
Okay, well, there's something called Operation Encompass, which is a charity I'm a patron of. And what they do is when there's been domestic abuse in a family and the police are called, if there are children in that family, even if the children have not been hurt and are maybe asleep in bed, the police confidentially tell the school. And it's very important because then the school knows if there have been problems at home which may have distressed the child or the children. And if you want to know more about it, and if schools want to know more about it, it's called Operation Encompass.
Thank you very much.
Very valuable work.
And so going back to the start, whilst you were a researcher and reporter for the great Canadian actor and comedian Bernard Brainerd, did you learn anything from him or that experience that helped you in your career?
I think he taught me everything. I was then able to put into practice. He taught me that television reaches into people's homes. So if you can persuade viewers that you care what's happening to them, they will get in touch with you and tell you. So that's point one. Point two, he taught me how to tell a story on television so that you don't stare fixedly at the camera, not blinking, appearing to have gone into rigor mortis, but you occasionally look away, look back, you make it conversational, you put it into question and answer because people follow your argument better. So there's an awful lot I learned from Bernie. He was incredible. I owe him a huge amount.
That's brilliant. And now on to your TV career later on. In 2008, you were in your own story on Who Do You Think You Are? And it took quite an unexpected turn when tracing back your family history. Could you talk us through that?
Well, here's my bit of advice. I am old enough to hand out advice, whether you like it or not. So here's my bit. If there's someone in your family that nobody talks about, somebody whose name never crops up, maybe you don't even know their name, beware. I thought I had a really respectable, boring family. In fact, I complained about it at the beginning of the program. I said, you know, I wish somebody in my family would do something a little bit interesting. My great-grandfather, whose name I did not know, and about whom nobody ever spoke, killed the parlour maid accidentally when he was playing with a loaded gun. Playing with a loaded gun. How could you do such a thing? Anyway, she was sweet. She lasted 10 days, and during those 10 days, she said, you know, he was desperately upset and it was an accident. Okay, I believe that. But then when he was in his 30s, he somehow disappeared. By then he was a lawyer with a lot of his clients' money.
Oh, no.
And went to America. And his wife, my great-grandmother, divorced him. I can only say rightly.
Yeah.
And then in his 90s, late 80s or 90s, he came back to England with a new wife, Ethel Mary Charlton. And the Home Office official allowed him to renaturalize. He'd become an American citizen and he wanted to become a British citizen again. And there was a note on his request which said that he was a charming, harmless old gentleman. Anyway, I didn't know any of that, any of it. So all I say to you is, if there's someone in your family that nobody talks about and you may not even know their name, beware.
Good advice.
The other thing, Salvatore, I will discover, in case you get away with the fact that I'm only related to murderers, is I also discovered, which I didn't know, that I was related to one of the richest men of his time called Barney Bonato.
Wow.
He owned a whole diamond mine, and I have visited the Kimberley diamond mine that once he owned.
Amazing. Wow. How was that? How was that to go and visit?
Well, it was amazing. I'm afraid I don't think there are many diamonds left. It's called the Big Hole now.
Yes,
people
yes.
dug down. Do you know it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not a lot of diamonds lying around on the ground, are there?
Nope.
And not a lot of the money came down to my side of the family, but still, it's rather fun to stand in the mine and think, gosh, once my great uncle owned all this. Good heavens.
That's amazing. And also in 2008, after that, you went on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. How was that experience for you?
I loved it. It was super. There you were in the sort of green valley with a stream running through it, and the was the farting of cameramen hiding in the rocks. And it was lovely. Of course, you had a bit of, I was buried underground in a coffin, which was chained down while they showered me with all kinds of creepy crawlies. So you had occasions like that. But I really enjoyed it. I always say if a helicopter landed there and someone said, get in this, Esther, you're going back to the jungle, I would immediately scramble into the helicopter with great pleasure. Don't ask me about Strictly Come Dancing. That was much more difficult.
Oh, did you learn a lot from Strictly Come Dancing?
Well, I learned, which I think I knew already, that I am not one of nature's natural dancers. But I also became firm friends with Anton Dubek, who is a lovely man, and we're still friends. And he helps me a lot with my charities. So
that's brilliant. Yeah.
So I'm really pleased to have done that.
And what would you say your best TV moment, apart from That's Life, would be?
That's a good question. Well, fun when I was captain of our team on The Chase.
Yes.
We beat the chaser.
You did. Not many people get to do that.
No, that was rather fun. I've never won the jackpot on Pointless. I've been on it twice, and I've got as far as the head-to-head, and I've never won the jackpot.
That is a tough show, that one. Really tough.
It's a tough show. And my problem is that I know a little about a lot of things, but to win the jackpot, you have to know a lot about something quite specialist.
Yes.
So I don't. Sometimes when I'm sitting at home, I shout the answer sometimes, but very rarely.
So now in 2010, you took a turn into politics and you stood for election to Parliament in South Luton. Why was that? And do you regret not standing for election before?
I did it because, for the worst possible reason, here's another bit of advice. Never, ever do something because you're angry, ever.
Yeah.
I was angry. I was angry because a lot of MPs had charged me as a taxpayer a lot of money to do stuff that was nothing to do with their job.
Yeah.
One of them, the one in Luton South, spent over £20,000 getting dry rot out of a house that wasn't in Luton and wasn't in Westminster. So what did it have to do with their work? Nothing. So I got angry and decided I would stand as an independent candidate. Now, obviously, our political parties in this country mop up nearly all the votes. You either vote Labour, or you vote Conservative, or you vote Lib Dem, or you vote for a party. Very, very few people ever vote for an independent, and very, very few people voted for me. So I didn't do it again.
You was a popular figure, though. Why do you think that not many people voted for you?
Well, when I was in the jungle, I talked to someone who had also stood for election. He was a television presenter called Robert Kilroy Silk. And he said to me, don't do it, Esther, because although they will shake your hand, they will cross the road to tell you how glad they are that you're there, and you can certainly count on their vote, but you can't, because when the moment comes, they will go into the polling booth and they will vote the way they've always voted, because we are a tribal nation.
Yes.
And he was completely right. Completely right.
And you then received the damehood as well. How did you feel when you were notified that you was going to receive that?
Well, they send you a letter. And I remember opening the letter and I looked at it rather stunned. But my daughter was with me and she read it over my shoulder and she started to jump like a kangaroo around my flat. So I tell you what, it happened after my husband died, and my husband would have been so thrilled.
Mm.
And so I was a bit sad in a way that he wasn't there, because when I got my OB, he's celebrated with a wonderful family party, and I know he would have liked to do the same. So I did have a little party, but it wasn't the same without him.
No, of course not. And I'm sorry for your loss. I know it was a few years ago. Who gave you your damehood? Was it the Queen?
It wasn't. The Queen gave me my OBE.
OBE.
And then Prince Charles gave me my CBE. And then Princess Anne gave me my DBE.
So you had the full lot.
I had the full lot.
Did you have any conversations with them?
I did. You're not supposed to tell anyone.
No, you're not. No.
But I remember Princess Anne warned me that the brooch she was pinning on my dress, because that's what happens when you're a dame, was a bit sharp. So I had to be careful.
And of course, you're a journalist. You've written in columns in many newspapers as well. And have you got any advice for someone, a student who would like to get into journalism?
Can you think of anybody who might like to get into journalism?
Well, I might, maybe.
If you meant that. Well, let me tell you, Salvatore, I've been listening to your questions, and
Yes.
you have done research, all of which was accurate. That is not always the case. You know, people ask me all kinds of questions. Some people talk to me and call me Dame Edna because I think she's more famous than me. Okay, so the first thing you've done is you've done really good research.
Okay, thank you.
Then I think you've asked the right questions. You've asked me questions which made me think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you've asked very good questions. You wrote a very good letter of invitation, which is why I've done this with you. So you're very persuasive.
Thank you.
So I think those are the three top attributes you will need as a journalist. And then you also need to have something which you either have or you haven't. You have to have an instinct for a story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And if you've got that instinct, that's fine. You've certainly got the other three.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And my final question is, why did you want to get into journalism in the first place? So you started off, you went to Somerville College in Oxford. What was the change from there?
Well, my father worked for the BBC,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a television very early on because he was one of the people that developed it. So we got one in 1946, as soon as we could, when the war ended. And I became aware that it was a fantastic way to tell stories. And I thought to myself, if there's something that people really need to know, I always thought that, you know, that sometimes there's information which helps people and is very useful. Television would be a good way to do that.
Yeah.
So I became a television journalist. I've never worked for newspapers, except as writing guest columns for them, but I've never been on the staff of a newspaper. My husband was trained first on local newspapers and then on the Daily Mirror before he came into television. So I've sort of done it the other way around. And I once asked him if he thought it mattered that I'd never worked on a newspaper. He said, no, he didn't think it did. He thought that I'd been trained just as well as a television journalist as I would have been as a newspaper journalist. But I think it's about having a curiosity about people. So I suppose I'm a bit nosy and a desire to tell stories. I suppose those are the two things you need as a journalist.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And so if you look back on your career, are there any regrets at all, or have you fulfilled everything you wanted to do or had the opportunity to do?
Well, I'm very sorry I didn't learn to ballroom dance a little earlier in my life, because I might have been less of an appalling partner for Anton. I'm also quite sorry I've never learned to knit. There are things I can't do, and also I can't use chopsticks.
Can you not?
No, all my children have tried to teach me. So you could say those are regrets. If I could go back to my childhood, I would make sure that I learned how to knit, how to use chopsticks, and how to ballroom dance.
And that actually brings us to the end of our podcast. So thank you for joining me today, Dame Esther. It's been an honor to have you on. You've been amazing. I hope everyone enjoyed that, and make sure to follow and listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to us on YouTube. See you all next time.
Thank you.